You've seen them popping up many times over the last couple of years, and most notably at Canada's Great Freedom Trucker Convoy in front of Parliament, which took place last year. And that is none other than F Trudeau flags. Some may find them offensive, although our Prime Minister had no issues dropping an F-bomb in Parliament himself.
The Prime Minister's office won't confirm or deny the alleged F-bomb. However, on CPAC as he left the House yesterday, Justin Trudeau echoed his father's words when Pierre Trudeau was accused of using the F-word.
What is the nature of your thoughts, gentlemen, when you say fuddle-duddle or something like that? God, you...
What is the nature of your thoughts, gentlemen, when you say you move your lips in a particular way?
And others might find these flags as a symbol of solidarity. But today I bring you an interview with one very new Canadian who almost wasn't a Canadian at all because he wanted to bear that F Trudeau flag proudly. Drea Humphrey here with Rebel News, and the Government of Canada describes one's Oath of Citizenship as the last step you can take before officially becoming a Canadian citizen. The ceremony, which was done typically before in person, has now, ever since COVID-19, been done virtually. And Adam Winter and his lovely partner, Sylvia from Victoria, says that now that has changed altogether. In fact, it took over 2 years, according to Adam, for the government to even confirm whether or not he spoke English. And he says at no time did anybody ever interview him in person. How does anyone actually know who he is? But that's not what this story is about today. This story is about Adam's choice and freedom of expression to put an F Trudeau flag on his wall and be told if he kept it up during the ceremony, he could not become a Canadian citizen. We're going to get right to Adam and Sylvia's story in just a second, but you should know Rebel News is one of the only very few news outlets. In fact, over 95% of news outlets take money from Prime Minister Trudeau's government in order to bring you the news. So if you appreciate that we are completely independent of government interest here and we can bring you stories like the one you're about to watch, consider opening up another tab and going to rebelnews.com and clicking on Donate to keep more reports like this coming. Here is why Adam decided to come to Canada and his story of what took place during his ceremony.
I came to Canada first 8 years ago, and I flew into Toronto expecting. I had no preconception of Canada, and I flew into Toronto and I was expecting sort of Montreal City in amongst the BC mountains. That's the image of Canada I had, the ignorant image of Canada I had at the time. And when I flew into Toronto, you can imagine my disappointment with that city. But I eventually found out where to go, which was here in BC. I came to Canada for the nature, for the wildlife, to sort of, explore the land basically and, get back to nature. And I ended up staying here. I live in one of the best places on earth, I would argue, for that. I also, I love motorbike riding and motorbikes in general. So we've got some of the best roads out here in the world again for biking around. So when I first came here, Drea, when I first saw the island, I, as a grown man, broke down in tears because I felt and I knew that I had found my home finally after 32 years at the time. And I haven't left, and I don't intend to leave. Well, we'll see about that. But this is my home and I don't want to leave.
You don't want to leave. And so,
that's when I first came to, that's my story of coming to Canada. I then met Sylvia during the start of the COVID crisis, actually. We came together. We've been together ever since then. And
so you go to do the last and final step. Congratulations, by the way, of being a citizen of Canada. But so you were doing the last step, which is basically an oath of citizenship, and you were doing it virtually, and you had that flag up behind you. And then what happened during that ceremony?
There was lots of other citizens to be in the ceremony there with all sorts of flags from their home nations and ones that I didn't even recognise as well. I don't know what they mean or symbolised at all. There was, other variants of the Canadian flag there with, the pride colours on them. And then there was me with my flag behind, this F Trudeau flag, proudly symbolising what it meant to me, which was people coming to a realisation of, their freedom and the freedoms guaranteed by the Constitution.
Now, what happened? Usually it's a judge who kinds of oversees this. So I saw your post on Facebook, and you did say that there was some opposition to this. So what happened?
Oh yes. So when we were all being checked off and verified and our identities verified, they pulled me into a separate meeting room. The ceremony was held virtually due to their ongoing COVID narrative. And so they're still not meeting in person as yet. So they pulled me aside and verified my identity. And then the person that was verifying my identity asked whether I could please take the flag down. And I asked why, and she said because it's offensive. And I said, why? It's everybody else has their flags up, and she said she would take it to her manager. So then we had to wait probably 10 minutes for the manager to come in, and she was specifying why she was trying to come up with a reason why we can't fly our flag, because she first said that it was connected to a certain political ideology, and I said, well, that's what all the other flags are.
Yeah. Is there a flag that isn't political?
Symbolizing as well. And then she said it's got profanity in it, which you can see here, Drea. I don't see any profanity.
Technically.
And then she said finally that it's not conveying a celebratory message, and that's why. And I asked her where any of these rules that she seemed to be making up on the spot are written down anywhere. She wasn't able to refer me to anything. She just said this is what she thinks. I explained to her that's her interpretation of the flag, that it is not celebratory. It's very celebratory to me, because it's about Canadians coming together, standing up for their fundamental rights and freedoms, God-given rights and freedoms, but also as stated in the Constitution as well. And she didn't seem to understand that. She was going to, she threatened to throw me out of the ceremony unless, and therefore I'd forfeit my citizenship if I was.
Yeah, it's a mandatory ceremony.
Because of her offence. And I said, and so then after that conversation, there was not much I could do, because power at the end of the day, unfortunately, wins over logic. So I did actually end up taking it down in the end. I had to, because of her rules, which were written down nowhere. I did ask her for her name, and she did say that she would send me her name. That never happened. So I don't know who this official was or anything like that was making up their own rules. But she said she threatened to basically forfeit my citizenship because of her own ideas not written down anywhere in the law or the rules.
Well, I looked at everything that they sent you to be prepared for this ceremony, and I also went online, and you're right, I couldn't find anything where it specifically said you're not allowed to have something like the flag you have up on the wall. It says that you could, bring a religious book if you wanted to. It says that you can have a celebratory outfit on. And so I guess that's where she put the word on. I did do an inquiry into the matter. I haven't heard back yet, but if I do, in a timely fashion, I'll put that in the written article, which you guys can find in the description box below. Sylvia, I'm going to jump to you for a second. So eventually you thought, oh my goodness, I have to be a Canadian. I have to get this done. And it's not worth it. And I understand that. But before that, during that 10-minute waiting period where you're waiting for them to come back, were you already nudging him and say, oh my gosh, just take it down. Just take it down. He might not be a Canadian. Or were you like, no, let's push this as far as we can go?
I just said to turn because it's all through Zoom. I just said, just angle it and then maybe angle it slightly back and just say accidentally you kicked the tripod. But obviously she made it pretty clear that, there's moderators watching. If at any point there's the slightest hint of the flag that shows like he would be removed, spoken to again, which would just delay the process. We just kind of want to get the process over with. But I kind of want to just keep the flag there, but like angle it differently. But then I think the angle of it just didn't work out.
Yeah, it didn't. They
knew.
They did threaten that if they saw the slightest hint of it, that we would be kicked out of the ceremony and therefore forfeit citizenship. But before we go on, Drea, I just want to also add that during the entire process of becoming a Canadian citizen, we taught, and it's hammered into us, the freedom of expression that's given in Canada. And when the lady representative from the immigration ministry told me I couldn't fly it, I did make a point to her saying, well, this is in contradiction to everything that you've taught, that they've taught us about the freedom of expression that's allowed in Canada.
You deserve a government that's going to continue to say, get vaccinated. And you know what? If you don't want to get vaccinated, that's your choice. But don't think you can get on a plane or a train besides vaccinated people and put them at risk.
Now, let's get to why that flag is on your wall, which I think a lot of people who, there are a lot of people who understand why people have that flag. But what is your story about why you guys have this flag? You talked a little bit, but is there something that you've been through or experienced in Canada that contributes to that?
Yes, so Drea, I was a senior employee for the BC Public Service, and I was let go from that position because of purely political reasons, as hundreds of others were, because of our decision not to disclose our private medical information. And Trudeau promoted that sort of ideology through his own government and allowed that to happen in the province in contradiction to the Charter of Rights and Freedoms.
Right.
And so he's a figurehead. He's certainly not the only person that I would wish to see on this flag, but he's a figurehead for that ideology, which breaks the fundamental rights and freedoms. So I ended up losing my job after being a senior employee and having $100,000 worth of education behind me. We were pregnant at the time. Sylvia was threatened with losing her job as well, and almost did. So I lost my job while pregnant with our first child, and it's been quite the struggle ever since, but we're overcoming it.
Again, thank you guys for being on Rebel News, and we'll fight another day.
Yeah, fight on. Thanks very much, Drea.
Thank you.
If you appreciate that Rebel News brings you the other side of the story and is completely independent of government interests, please go to rebelnews.com and click on the donate button. We appreciate your support.